survive. Right before me, my newfound hippie side once ignored these conspiracies online. Out the window, visions of the earth. Sign me up now, make sure you use your smart. Take a walk on the wild side. Will the birds and the bees survive? Would your children lie to see Mother Nature sigh?
Welcome to Smart Health Talk with your host, Elaine McFadden.
I guess that was a dark moment. This is Smart Health Talk, everyone. I'm your host, Elaine McFadden. We're the show that cares about your health. We're here to bring you the latest information to keep you alive and healthy. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. That's our goal. We want you to get more nutrition bang for your buck as well. And not just the nutrition, but money savings. We talk about all those kind of things. We're going to talk about a very, very special butterfly today as well. And we have our master gardener on hold waiting to talk to us about gardening. So if you guys have wanted to get some sort of gardening started, and just because you don't have a plot of land doesn't mean that you can't grow things. We're going to have some great references, some resources, and some information on how to get started, some of the best choices that you can make, how to keep it organic, because we know those pesticides are a big bummer. That's right. They're a bummer if you don't want to have cancer, that's for sure. They're a bummer if you don't want to kill the bees and butterflies and poison your yard. We got it on the food. There's ways we can avoid that, and we want to. This is something that should be a top priority for everyone, is to avoid pesticides. Not just that, but I mean, when we start doing things where we're helping to support local farming, we're actually increasing our national security, as well as increasing the amount of nutrients that we're putting into our diet. Because fresh is best, everyone. And you would not believe all the things that happen to your food before it reaches that store shelf. Makes us cringe. And that's why we're here today to give you this information, because we want to keep you up to date. I tell you, by the time they start talking about what we talk about here on Smart Health Talk on television, years have passed. I tell you, they finally, it was like within the past year, started talking about things we were talking about 8 years ago when we first started this show. So we are like too much, we're ahead of our time most of the time, but that's a good thing when it comes to your health, because unfortunately as a dietitian, I don't get all that instant gratification except for when I got really good tasting food, which is what you can find at the farmer's market, everyone. When you eat good quality, it does make a difference. And people know it. And they know that organic means quality. And they know that it means it's a safer product. A lot of people know that. So how do we help connect people with that organic food? That's some of what we're going to be talking about today. And because we want you to have as much as possible and be able to fit it into your budget. And when you grow your own food, that's how you can get it done. That's one of the ways. And we have an expert on the line, Christine Lampe. She's a master gardener with all kinds of experience, every time I look at her Facebook and see all of her harvests, her great pictures, I get so jealous because I wish I had that much. Unfortunately, I'm pretty busy growing milkweed, which if you tune in live at kcaaradio.com, you can see my milkweed and us right here in the studio, and you can watch and listen at the same time. But this video will be up. We're live streaming on YouTube, and you can watch us there, but you can also catch this video after the show and our podcast on iHeartRadio. Well, let's get Christine on the line here and start pumping her for information on some good gardening tips. And we're also going to talk about our very special monarch butterflies. All right. Hey, Christine.
Hi, Elaine. How are you?
Okay, hold on. I got to... You sound really far away. Okay, there. That's better. That's much better.
Okay.
Okay. How you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. So what's it like over at your house right now?
Things are really growing a lot here. This is that time of year when things are. I'm pulling things out and putting new things in. And I just love this time of year.
You're still a little bit fuzzy. Why don't you want to hang up and call back? Yeah, we're gonna have you hang up and call back. We want to hear you nice and clear. So
I'll try the other phone. Okay.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna have Christine call back in on another phone, everyone. But like I was saying, the monarch butterflies, we're going to be talking about those, and the milkweed that I have right here in the studio. We actually have that for sale. If you go to bluemonarchproject.com, you can buy our milkweed online, and we can ship it to you. But if you want to come and pick it up, we're in Loma Linda is where our organic nursery is. And we use absolutely no pesticides, which is very important because the pesticides stay in the plant. And they're systemic, and they can stay in there for months. And just the pesticide used on the outside of one seed can kill 360,000 bees. That's how toxic these pesticides are, and that's why it's so important that you only buy organic. Okay, let's try this again, Christine. Testing.
Hi.
Okay, we gotcha. We got you now. Okay. All right, I gotta turn my volume down on this side a little bit. Woo, man, I wore a long sleeve sweater, and I think it's warm in here. It's warmer than I thought. Kind of got a little, I don't want to get any sweat in my eyes again. I can't see. Okay, well, yeah, the temperatures are going up, so things are growing, right? And so,
yes.
And so we wanted to talk today about, we got some in the news kind of things going on, and Christine is always good for giving me I got to get rid of this thing here. Giving us some other feedback on some of these in the news type of stories, and then we're going to be getting some gardening tips on what kind of things we should be doing at this time of the year, and especially here in Southern California. We know we have people tune in from all over the world, all over the country, on our KCAA radio website, but of course they listen to our podcast and that. But these are the kind of tips too that we have special tips for Southern Cal, but then a lot of these tips are universal, so they'll work for just about anyone. Okay, so before we get into the nitty gritty, you really want to catch last week's podcast. We had Carrie Gillum on our show, and she gave us an update on Roundup. And what does it mean when you talk to the different community groups that you talk to, Christine, and you get into some of the normal practices that people do right now? In the springtime, I had my neighbor out there again with the pesticides. They think, and some people, they think, we could talk about this too, they think that they're buying a safe pesticide. How do they even know if they have a safe pesticide or not?
Well, for years, the commercials for Roundup especially were making it, seem like this is something really safe to do, that they showed, they always had that poor little dandelion. I mean, the commercials were actually quite funny.
I know, it's ridiculous, actually, that a dandelion is like evil that needs, to be poisoned and getting rid of.
He was like the cowboy, outlaw, and here comes the homeowner, good guy with the white hat, but in usually shorts and bare legs, and no protective gear, with his little spray wand and to spray the dandelion. First of all, what is so evil about a dandelion, in your yard, in your lawn? And I think
The bees love them in my lawn. I have them in my lawn,
yes.
and the bees are all over them. That's
They
one of
are
their
a
favorite
bee
things.
magnet, yes. And if you don't, if you just mow your lawn regularly, it'll keep them short. But then for kids, I remember as a kid, I loved those blowing the little puff balls and making a wish. And I have never understood why people don't want this beautiful, kind of like a meadow effect, having flowers growing in their lawn.
And this whole idea that it's perfectly safe because when you're out there spraying, of course it's getting on your skin.
Yes, but again, the commercials made it seem like it was no big deal, and so people have grown up with this, that to be a proper, good homeowner, you had to have a monoculture lawn, just this green, all one kind of grass with no flowers growing out there, because that's what homeowners do to be and it was always the keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing. So your lawn had to look better and greener than the neighbor's lawn, and that's and especially, I guess it was a male kind of thing, that you had to go out there with a lawnmower and spray your stuff, and they always showed these, I think, during the football games, right? Those commercials. So it was playing into the male psyche, I think.
And they're still playing them. I'm still seeing them on multiple channels, and I want to get a campaign going where I get people like on Twitter and Facebook leaving comments for them to stop promoting a cancer-causing product.
Well, a few weeks ago, I took on I walk most every morning, but I went around the neighborhood, and I was just purposely taking pictures of everybody's yard. With a lot of them had the dandelions growing in them, and so I was trying to take pictures to show how beautiful I thought they were. You don't want your lawn to get real tall and weedy looking. That can be even a fire hazard if the weeds get too tall. But if you're mowing your lawn regularly, but not spraying anything, and you don't have to get out there and pull the weeds, to pull those dandelions. But if you want to, you do. Also, dandelions are completely edible. All parts of the dandelion is edible. So you can either just go out there regularly and pull some of the leaves off and throw them into your salad. And if you really want to pull them up, then use those roots. Those roots are very beneficial, medicinal. They have a lot of good properties to them. You can. They used to use it as a substitute for coffee, the dandelion roots. But they're anti-inflammatory, and I forget what else they're good for.
So what do you do with them? You just boil them?
You can grate them and let them dry and make tea out of them.
Oh, interesting.
Or I would grate them and just throw them into my salad raw. But, definitely don't harvest them if you've sprayed anything or don't know if anything's been sprayed in that yard. But then again, they probably won't be there if anything's been sprayed.
Yeah, that's true. And I just, here I just said it, cancer causing. And what just came out in the news is the EPA is reaffirming that glyphosate does not cause cancer, when we have all this evidence that it does, when we have two big court cases where the jury, last week, Christine, Carrie said that the jury in the second trial, that they were so adamant that their $22 million settlement not be changed. They wrote to the judge, do not change our settlement.
Yeah, I heard that show. It's really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, the jury, the juries are all like unanimously saying this causes cancer, and yet we have an EPA that is denying the scientific evidence that it causes cancer, which this is like, so what does that mean when the EPA does stuff like that? What does that mean to you? What does that say?
Well, my understanding is that, we can't depend on the EPA to look out for what's good for us, because they aren't testing stuff. They often will just take the test results that the company itself has done and said, "Oh, we tested this product, and here's the results." This is like the foxes guarding the hen house, you know.
Right.
We're relying on these companies, first of all, to report accurate information, and you know, we have, in hindsight, found out through FOIA requests that a lot of companies are hiding information. It's when Monsanto did tests on GMO, they found out that if they let, you know, feeding GMO food to rats after 4 months is when tumors started showing up. So they cut off their data at 3 months.
That's diabolical. That is so diabolical.
But in hindsight, they're finding out, yes, these companies knew there was harm being done, and they're hiding it. It wasn't that they were ignorant.
Yeah, that came out during the trials. And another new study that just came out yesterday that I thought was really important, because I had people saying, "Where's the proof?" And the title is "Climate Change Being Fueled by Soil Damage." So this is like really important, because there has been research out there showing the connection between climate change, global warming, and, you know, pretty much just destroying our soil. We're not regenerating our soil. We're just turning it into this chemical factory that we just keep. It's a zombie. It's not a living thing anymore. We just kind of put some chemicals on there and some pesticides on there. That's just not a living thing anymore. And a living soil is so beneficial in so many ways. What does that say to you, Christine, does that make sense to you that soil damage would influence climate change?
Oh, of course. It's the living organisms in the soil that actually, they're kind of the glue that holds soil together and gives it the right kind of texture and makes it very healthy for plants to grow in. Those microorganisms, the fungi and the bacteria and the macroscopic organisms in there, it is their waste products, it's their dead bodies or their, you know, waste products that come out of them that are actually nutrients for the plants. And in fact, the plants, they have this relationship that scientists are learning more and more about in the rhizosphere, which is this envelope area around the root system, that plants actually will exude certain chemicals that actually call and cultivate these certain bioorganisms to this area. And it's kind of like farming, I guess, in a way, to get certain bacteria to grow around your roots or certain fungi. And then, you know, if you as a plant know you need certain nutrients, you actually call, you know, you send out the call to certain fungi that then will provide those nutrients to you. That is just so fascinating.
Well, and then the microcozy fungi provide all this network of highways to actually bring that nutrient to the plant.
And they interconnect the plants. It's what they like. You know, some people.
So
are now
they share
the
nutrients
between the roots. That and plants of different types are connecting, and they will even share nutrients from plant to plant. It's just so incredible, you know, so sophisticated, and we're just now learning so much about this that is fascinating.
And all the pesticides are really doing is destroying those systems.
Oh yeah, the Roundup, its original patent was as a antibiotic and a pipe cleaner. So as a pipe cleaner, it was a chelator, which meant it would grab onto minerals and hold on to them. So in the soil, it would grab onto minerals and keep it from being absorbed by the plants as a nutrient. And as an antibiotic, that means it's killing the good bacteria that's in the soil. So in two ways right there, it's preventing the plants from getting proper nutrition. So the plants can't get the nutrition from the soil, so instead, when you spray with this herbicide, then you also need to spray with fertilizers to, you know, otherwise your plants won't have any nutrients. It's for the chemical corporations, this is a win-win. They're selling you the herbicide, and then they're selling you the synthetic fertilizers.
When you have healthy soil, you don't even need those chemicals.
And then they're also finding out after they've sprayed these herbicides, you know, for their GMO crops that are immune to the herbicide, that then later the residues from the crops were not decomposing. Usually they would till them in and they would just decompose, but because the bacteria isn't there any longer, it didn't decompose. So then they were being sold a third product to decompose the residue.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is weird. And remember, I told you that they're not, that like farmers are not wanting to use like horse manure on their plants anymore because there's too much glyphosate in it.
Yes.
So the plants won't grow because there's glyphosate in the manure.
That's why I used to get manure from various sources, only if I knew the animals were being fed organically. But even now, I'm just reluctant to get that. I've built up my gardening so much that I just have my closed cycle here. And I pretty much trust that I have enough, I know in my property what's gone in here. But yeah, because there's drift, there's from the other chemicals. So even if you're trying to be an organic gardener or farmer, you have to worry about what's coming in the air or in the soil or the water from elsewhere. These two systems, organic and non-organic, cannot coexist.
Well, listen to this latest report that just came out this past week too, and it's from Europe. And we've talked about all of our waterways in the United States being contaminated, not just with pesticides, but with heavy-duty chemicals like Teflon-type chemicals, which we know are just, some of the most toxic of all. Yeah. Well, this new report was on the water in Europe, and they say contaminated water across Europe because of pesticides and veterinary antibiotics. A better farming is urgent. And what they found was, in total, they sampled rivers and canals in this investigation, and they found 103 different pesticides, 24 that were actually banned in Europe, and yet they're in the water. Then they found 21 different veterinary drugs, and they're just like dumping this stuff. I was really glad that 60 Minutes actually did a show last Sunday. I highly recommend that everybody watch the show. It will open your eyes to antibiotic resistance. We have been talking about it on the show since the beginning. We have a huge section on our website. So if you type in antibiotic resistance smart health talk, I put together information that I thought anyone could really see it. I have some great pictures that show, like how it happens with antibiotics, how we end up with these antibiotic resistant bacteria. But the 60-minute video, they had something that was far superior to that. They actually took a tray and they poured all of this. See what medium did they put in there? I know that they put. First of all, they put like a medium, like of good bacteria, I think, and then they put the antibiotic resistant. They put the antibiotics on there, and what happened was, they had like the E. coli, then they put the antibiotic. They put the antibiotics first, then they put the E. coli. That was it. So they had the antibiotic liquid there, then they put the E. coli on it. So what happened was they had actually different sections where different levels of the antibiotics as far as strength went. And the area where they had the strongest antibiotic, actually the E. coli started growing after a period of time. There was E. coli that started growing in the most strongest antibiotic area is where it grew the most. And that bacteria was bacteria that was resistant. You could actually watch evolution in real time, Christine.
Wow.
That is what they were showing.
That's contaminated.
To just pour it on a tray there, add the antibiotics, and sit there and watch evolution create antibiotic-resistant bacteria right before your eyes should be an eye-opener for everybody out there. And what the message for the guy he said that we are doing a better thing by not taking antibiotics than by taking them. Every time we don't take them, we're making the world a better place, because when we do need them, they will work. We already have 22 states where they have identified the same organism that was found in pigs a couple of years ago in China that's resistant to everything. And we have lots of babies being born in India, that there's only one antibiotic left that is an old antibiotic that is working, because they become resistant to the new antibiotics. So they have to go and use an old antibiotic to even save some people now, because they're resistant against every other antibiotic we have. So they are estimating 100 million people a year are going to start dying from antibiotic resistance.
Wow.
100 million people. And this is why when I find the drugs, I know that probably a lot of these drugs are antibiotics. And we have a big deal right now, a big discussion, which I mentioned it last week too, where they want to spray, but because it's such a big issue, everyone, they want to spray antibiotics on citrus fruit. Have you heard that?
No, I have not heard that one.
Yeah, they did this in the past. Now they're trying, and we got rid of it. Now they're trying to start it up again. And there was such a huge resistance that they had to extend the comment period. But, we don't hear about this stuff, do we?
Well,
Here,
is this for the Asian citrus psyllids?
I don't know why they're using it.
You would spray an antibiotic on that.
I don't know why they're using it. I just know that they want to use it.
Citrus is got a peel that you peel. So why would you what bacteria are you worried about on citrus? I haven't heard of any recalls on citrus due to bacteria.
Okay, it says EPA proposes 650,000 pounds of antibiotics per year for the citrus greening disease.
Okay,
to treat the bacteria that causes the citrus greening disease. They want to use streptomycin, 650,000 pounds of it, on citrus fruit.
It's like, I would much rather eat some other fruit and give up on citrus, so that's our answer. If the only answers to saving our citrus industry is GMOs and antibiotics, I would get my vitamin C from other fruits.
And I know from all the research that I've done, it's the pesticides that's causing the disease.
I've been suspicious, yes.
Once you start taking that away, the plant, and start giving the plants good nutrition, or the orchards good nutrition, the greening disease goes away, and the citrus psyllid goes away.
That's from Dr. Don Huber, his research, yeah.
Yeah.
And my trees, I have 5 citrus trees, and I've been spraying them. I do a monthly compost tea foliar spray, and 3 times a year do a root drench with compost tea. I have some, and to that I add molasses and seaweed and fish hydrolysate and apple cider vinegar. It's called the Garrett juice. The Dirt Doctor. He's Howard Garrett out of Texas, does an organic gardening radio show there. That's his kind of recipe. Other people have compost tea recipes. Dr. Elaine Ingram has shown how beneficial this is to do root drenches with compost tea. So to do it is the basic recipe is just to put a handful of compost, finished compost, or if you have worm bins, you can get the worm compost, or do a mix of both. And if you don't have either, you can just put used coffee grounds, which coffee grounds have fungus in it. If you've ever seen old coffee grounds, they get that kind of turquoise mold growing on it.
Yeah.
It's actually a beneficial fungus. So if you don't have access to compost, you can just do old coffee grounds and put it in a bucket of water, like a 5-gallon bucket overnight. If you've got an aquarium bubbler, it's best to bubble it so it gets a aerobic action going. But if you just need to let it sit without that, that's okay too. And then just spray it on your plants or do a root drench. And as I said, I add those extra supplements to it for an extra boost. There's various recipes. Different people have ideas of what works best.
Where do you buy that stuff that you use?
Usually places where they sell either organic gardening supplies. Most of them just more, here in Riverside, Parkview, or Louis, or also places that sell hydroponic gardening supplies. Because people who are doing things hydroponically usually want to do them organically. So they have the seaweed and the fish hydrolysate, the things I need to buy. Apple cider vinegar, I just get.
Does that help tomato plants that get, that get like that yellow and brown disease on there that destroys the tomato plants?
Tomato blight?
Yeah.
Yeah, with those, I often, when I'm planting my plants, in fact, I was doing that today, setting them into the ground, then I will throw in a handful of cornmeal. And that cornmeal also, there's that smut that grows on corn. That's actually a beneficial fungus. And so the cornmeal has that in it. And that's a beneficial fungus that will fight against that bad fungus, the tomato blight.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. That is so cool.
And then also here in Southern California, our soils are deplete in magnesium for the most part. So I usually throw in a tablespoon of Epsom salt, which has this magnesium sulfate. They also usually need sulfur in the soil too, so it helps for both of that. But you shouldn't do it every year because it will build up. So you might, if you've been doing it a while, you might want to test your soil. But for most people, that's a beneficial thing.
Does any Epsom salt work? Any brand?
I think any brand. It should just be magnesium sulfate.
Okay.
Unless they add some additives to it.
Okay.
I know some have lavender or some kind of fragrance to it, but I would just get plain magnesium salt, Epsom salt.
Well, we were talking about compost piles and compost tea, which that's really, really great advice. But another new study that just came out yesterday that I found kind of surprising is that, those biodegradable plastic, like the bio bag. I've used that.
Or now the compostable forks and spoons and things.
Well, they're saying biodegradable plastic bags survive 3 years in soil and sea. So
I threw one of those or a couple of those bags in my compost pile, and I threw a couple of forks and spoons that say compostable in them. And so far, I haven't. As I dig through my pile, and then when it's finished and sift through it, I found them and put them back into the next pile. I have been told by someone that the forks, which are made from some kind of corn or cornstarch, they need a special, actually, heat treatment to degrade.
And how do we know they're not GMO corn?
I don't know. I'm not worried about that in the composting. That would break it down. So I don't worry about GMO things going into the compost. That will just break it down. But I just recently read about using avocado pits to make compostable cutlery. So I'd be interested in seeing how those compost down. That would be fun to find out. I'm glad to see, corn. We have so many uses for corn. Why use them for making disposable cutlery? But avocado seeds, they said here in Mexico, not here, I'm not in there, but down there in Mexico, they make a lot of guacamole for shipping to stores, and then they have all these seeds left over, and they usually just burn them. So now they're finding another use for them to do this. So
I think I read about I had read about something else that a guy was using avocado seeds for too. I can't remember what it is right now, but yeah, they're pretty. I know there's and then there was like this one group over in India, I think, and they had a bunch of what kind. It was like banana leaves, I think. And they figured out how to make women's sanitary napkins from something that was just being burned again as waste. And they were able to take those and recycle them. And that's a big problem in India. A lot of women don't have any.
Right, right.
And so they were able to use this material that, was pretty much costing them nothing because it was going to be trash, and turn it into, this product. I just thought that was like brilliant. Like, yeah, let's think of more stuff like that where we're not wasting anything, because it's just a matter of figuring out the repurpose for that product. And also just, all of our products that we're making, we need to make companies responsible for all recycling for their packaging.
Or for the end use of their, what happens to their packaging? Yes.
Yeah. What happens after the product isn't good anymore? What's going to happen to it? Because we're just going to keep digging landfills all around the planet? Is that what we're going to do?
A bit disheartening at Costco or even Trader Joe's. Sometimes I find a new product that's organic, but it's in all these little packaging. It's like individual little packets and more plastic. And I keep thinking, why can't you just wrap it like in parchment paper? Why does it need to be plastic? And so your product, to be organic, packaging should be taken into account as well. The overall sustainability of products.
Yeah, I don't even use plastic wrap anymore. I put something in a container that has a top, or I put a plate on top.
You can make something similar out of linen that's been saturated with beeswax.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I saw a product like that.
It's a kind of a DIY thing to make as a gift. So you make cute little things, and you can wrap and rewrap and then wash them off, and eventually you might want to renew them. But the whole thing then is, you can melt out the beeswax and redo it, or so that's completely reusable
and that molds around your bowl and helps seal it in too, right?
Say that again.
It can mold around the top of the bowl.
Right. You use the beeswax helps it mold around the bowl, so you can use it for wrapping your sandwiches that you pack in lunches, or to put it around bowls to go in the fridge.
And you can find nice linen at thrift stores.
Yeah, so it's a cute little gift idea.
Yeah, linen table, napkins and tablecloths and stuff like that.
Yeah, just cut them with some pinking shears around the edge, and then you just need to get the beeswax. I find that more and more available at farmers markets.
Well, let's get to one of my absolute favorite subjects, because I haven't seen any monarchs in my yard yet. Have you seen any monarchs yet?
I have not seen them in my yard, but a few miles away. They are in the Grow Lab yard. The Master Gardeners have a demonstration Grow Lab, so they're there, and I have gone there to get caterpillars so I can take them. We had the Riverside Insect Fair last weekend, and I go to schools and do presentations to the kids to encourage them, to grow things for the butterflies, and also go home and try to encourage their parents not to spray anything in the garden, but also to help grow just nectar plants for the adult butterflies, as well as the host plants, for the various caterpillars. So I haven't seen monarchs very much at all, but painted ladies, now those are everywhere. That's because we had so much rain this last winter, and then there's so many plants growing on the hillside. We had the poppy apocalypse near Lake Elsinore, everybody trampling the poor poppies there by the I-15. But because so many plants are growing, and the fiddlenecks are a plant, it's a yellow flower that is a wildflower, and they kind of grow in a spiral, so they look like the neck of a violin, hence fiddleneck. So out hiking, I have seen the painted lady caterpillars all over the fiddlenecks. And
what do they look like?
The flower,
the painted lady caterpillars.
Oh, they look almost like a monarch, but maybe 2/3 or half the size. They have the same colors. They're orange and black with the white dots in the black. But the black is only on the corners of the front wings, whereas on the monarch, the black edges the whole edges of the wings with the white dots in the black. So and painted ladies have more of a fluttery look to them when they're flying, whereas monarchs have more of a graceful kind of a flight pattern. So I can usually tell, just by seeing the size and the flight pattern. I can tell a monarch from a painted lady.
And
And there's West Coast ladies, which are here in California, and there's also an American lady. They're all very similar, but I think the ones that most people are seeing right now are just the basic painted lady. And kids, if they've grown butterflies in the school, it is usually the painted lady. These are ones that teachers can mail order. They get shipped to them from these educational companies, supply companies, and so the kids are very familiar with them too.
oh, you know what else I'm watching right now? This is so cute. It's the Friends of Big Bear Valley and Big Bear Eagle Nest Cam.
The eagles.
Yeah, the eagle nest cam, and the eagles hatch, and there's the little chicks, and the mom is like,
Yeah, they hatched out a couple of weeks ago.
yeah, and I don't know if she's feeding it fish or what dead thing it is there, but dead meat, but she's like ripping the meat off and feeding the chicks the little pieces of meat. It's just so adorable. And if you just type in eagle cam Big Bear, and then go to their Facebook page, you can find it and watch the cam, everyone. But it's such a great thing to watch with your kids. You know, kids are just like, they love this, but I love it. I'm not even a kid. I love it. But if people want to help the monarch butterflies, and we know that they need help because they had a really bad year last year.
Well, I think the numbers were the West Coast monarchs, the ones here in California.
Right.
Ours. Their numbers were down 87% less than last year's count for the winter count. So here in California and west of the Rockies, our butterflies, our monarchs, go to the beach. Pismo Beach is one of the famous places people hear about. But all along the California coast, from Santa Clara even all the way down to San Diego, maybe even further south, they overwinter along the coast. Except we've had a problem that, people are now starting to grow milkweed because they know the butterflies need milkweed, but they aren't learning that they need to cut it back. If they're growing tropical milkweed, it doesn't die back in the winter. So like our native milkweeds do. And so if you don't cut back your tropical milkweed or any milkweed that hasn't died back by Halloween, then the butterflies tend to stay around in the Inland Empire here. They keep laying their eggs in the wrong time of year, and then those caterpillars that hatch out, it's colder, so they're weaker, their immune systems are not as strong, and they're more susceptible to this disease that the butterflies get called OE, electroshira, I won't even try to say it all.
Yeah, I can never say it either. OE, it's called OE, everyone, and it's horrible. It's a horrible, horrible disease.
It's a single-celled organism that gets on the butterflies, kind of like fleas on a dog. And if they just have a few, it's not too much of a problem. But when they get infested with these, it weakens the butterflies.
So do they multiply while they're on there? Are they multiplying?
They multiply with the life cycle of the butterfly.
No, but I mean after the butterfly is born and they have some of them on there, are they multiplying?
On the butterfly?
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure.
I wondered about that.
I don't remember all the details. But I know when the butterfly visits the milkweed, the adult butterfly comes to nectar out the flowers, or she's coming to lay her eggs, that she will deposit some of these organisms on the milkweed. And then they sit there on the milkweed and wait until the next butterfly comes to visit, and then they get on that butterfly. So your milkweed, if it's growing all winter long, then this disease cycle is not broken. And then also because the butterflies stay around during the winter, they're weaker and more susceptible to this disease and other diseases too. So it's really important to break this disease cycle by cutting your milkweed back around October and encouraging our butterflies to migrate and go to the beach like they're supposed to. And then when they come back in early spring, we have new fresh milkweed for them that should not be infected, and that helps break this cycle.
Yeah, and that's important, but I don't think we have enough milkweed out there right now. By far.
So as master gardeners, we're encouraging people to grow milkweed, but we're also trying to educate them about cutting it back as well.
Right, and what I noticed this year with mine is, it died because of the weather and stuff. So really, the cutting the back wasn't as much of a problem.
Did you have tropical or some native type?
Yeah, the tropical still, it died back.
Oh.
It died back on its own, even without cutting. I had cut a bunch of it anyway, but the caterpillars, whatever they didn't eat, it just seemed like the weather, the leaves got all ugly and
Oh, they do that, yeah.
Yeah, and
so when you cut it back, you leave like a 6 to 8 inch stem, and it will regrow in the spring.
It grows back fuller, actually, and it's much nicer.
And it's actually good to cut it back a couple of times during the summer too, which I'm doing that constantly because I'm taking cuttings to feed butterflies, caterpillars that I'm raising indoors. And when you take cuttings like that, also you can root them in water and then start new plants too.
Yeah, so you can, and plus they have lots of seeds. So once you get a few plants, they'll multiply on their own. But we're encouraging people. I actually have at BlueMonarchProject.com. We have milkweed for sale. I actually shipped my first shipment off last week. It was pretty great. So we have milkweed for sale that we can send you, and it's organic milkweed, and we have all kinds of information on. Pardon me.
What types of milkweed do you have?
I have about 3 or 4 kinds. I have lots of tropical, and I do have quite a few of the narrow leaf. And
narrow leaf is a native. It's a very slow grower. I've been growing some from seeds, and they grow a lot.
And it doesn't feed them very much.
Tropical.
When they get big, if the narrow leaf isn't big enough, then the branches bend, and it's like.
Well, now I have some that's 3 years old, and I'm finding it's starting to finally grow fast.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was wondering about that.
They died back. They died back in the pot. I have most of mine in pots, but now this year the ones that are 3 years old, they're really growing a lot better. So I haven't even gotten any to make flowers, so I don't have seeds yet.
They must make a rooting system that stays active under the ground, and as that rooting system expands, then the next year, even though it looks like and I noticed that the native ones really died back.
Yeah.
And so then all these new shoots started coming out from where they had died back. So.
Yeah, that's what's been happening.
Yeah, and I have mine are a couple of years old, so they're growing pretty good. And I do have a couple other natives. I can't tell you exactly what they are, but I do have a couple other. I just have limited amount of those, though.
But to overall encourage people to grow nectar plants for the adult butterflies. Milkweed does provide nectar as well.
Well, we have 1 minute, so.
Lantana, there's a lot of good nectar plants.
And you can buy organic seeds, everyone, as well. So you can get a lot of plants started that way and find those.
And make sure your plants have not been sprayed when you get them from the nursery with anything.
Yeah, ask. And tell them they better tell you the truth. Okay, well, thank you so much. And we have lots of gardening information on what to plant, companion planting on smarthealthtalk.com. But please go visit our Blue Monarch Project and learn about monarchs and how you can get started, okay? Hope you learned a lot from our show today. Tune in again next Tuesday. Thanks for listening. I'm Elaine McFadden. Bye.
You use your smile. Take a walk on the wild side. Will the birds and the bees.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM.